האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Erev Tov, good evening, Dobre V'Yetcher. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parshas Bo, and we're going to take a look at the section Vav, Drush Vav, section number 6. Before we do, let's take a look at two psukim from the Parsha, Perek Yud Beis, psukim Aleph and Beis, and we'll see the Zera Shimshon is going to start with the second of these two psukim. So the Torah says as follows, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe v'el Aharon, and Hashem said to Moshe and to Aharon be'eretz Mitzrayim, in the land of Mitzrayim, Lemor, saying, HaChodesh hazeh lochem rosh chodashim. This month, which of course referred to the month of Nisan that they were in at the time when this mitzvah was stated, this month, the month of Nisan, shall be for you rosh chodashim, the first of the months. Rishon hu lachem, it will be the first for you, lechodshei hashana, for the months of the year. Now, of course, we know that in certain ways, Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, is viewed as the beginning of the year, but nonetheless, in terms of how we set up our calendar and how we organize the months, Nisan is the first month. And in that sense, Tishrei is actually called in the Torah the seventh month, which of course creates an unusual situation where the Jewish New Year of Rosh Hashanah is the first day of the seventh month of the year. But in our Torah, many things are not simple. Many things are Hashem. We live in a complicated world, and our Torah is complicated and complex. So Nisan is the first of the months. Let us look right into the Zera Shimshon, Os Vav, section 6, Parshas Bo. Pasuk. The pasuk says, "HaChodesh hazeh lochem v'chulei." This month should be for you, etc. Yesh loses tam l'shvach. We can give a good reason. Loma hutzrach lomar liYisrael parshas kiddush hachodesh kodem sheyotzu miMitzrayim. Why did the Torah need to articulate to Bnei Yisrael this section about Kiddush HaChodesh, about sanctifying the new moon and declaring a new month every time the new moon appears, Kodem Sheyotzu miMitzrayim, before Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim? Why was it organized? Why did Hashem want to organize things in such a way that the Bnei Yisrael received the mitzvah, this mitzvah from this pasuk we just read, of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying the new month? Again, every month when the new moon is seen in the sky, the Beit Din, the Sanhedrin, would declare and pronounce a new month as was beginning. And why did that mitzvah have to be stated before Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim? And the reason this question is so striking is because when we read the Parsha, it looks like it's an interruption, where we're reading the narrative and we've read about the Makos and the Bnei Yisrael is ready to leave Mitzrayim, and all of a sudden there's almost like an interruption, and we receive the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. So the Zera Shimshon saying, question number one, why? Why does it have to appear right here before Bnei Yisrael leaves Mitzrayim? Umahu hazeh, and what is the meaning of the word this? HaChodesh hazeh, this month. Umahu lachem, and what exactly is the meaning of lachem, for you? So the Zera Shimshon is saying, besides for the fundamental, the most basic question of why the mitzvah had to be given at this point, right before Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, there are two textual questions. What exactly is the meaning of hazeh, this month, and what exactly is the meaning of for you? Meaning, besides the pshat meaning, besides the simple meaning in the pasuk, what's the deeper meaning with these words? Next paragraph. Umilvad, besides Mashedarshu Chazal, what Chazal have already explained, Kazeh Re'eh V'Kadesh, like this you should see and sanctify. In other words, the Zera Shimshon assumes that we're familiar with the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah that says that the reason it says HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem is because Moshe was shown, Hashem actually showed Moshe what the new moon would look like. And he said, when this is what is seen, when this is what appears in the sky, that's the time to declare the new month, to do the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. So the Zera Shimshon says, of course we know that explanation, but besides for that, what do these words mean? Yesh lomar, and we can say, the Beperek Beis the Edios, in the second chapter of the Mishnayot, the tractate of Mishnayot of Ediot, Amrinon, we say, Mishpat HaMitzriyim Shnei Masar Chodesh, the justice that was given out to the Egyptians lasted for 12 months. So this is a reference to the plagues, the 10 plagues, and the time of the Egyptians being judged and punished with the 10 plagues lasted for 12 months, is a statement in the Mishnah. V'isa b'medrash, and it states in the Medrash of Shmos Rabbah, shekol maka hayisa mishameshes revi'ah chodesh. Every plague, in other words, each individual plague of the 10 plagues, lasted for a fourth of a month. Let's call that a week. So each plague lasted a week. Usha'ar yemei hachodesh heim lehasra'ah. And the rest of the days of each month were for warning. Well, let's call that 3 weeks. So according to the Shmos Rabbah, there were 3 weeks of hasra'ah, of warning about an upcoming plague, and then the plague would take effect for 1 week. Va'ayin sham, and you can look over there in the Medrash Rabbah, al pasuk on the pasuk, vayimolei shivas yamim, and 7 days were filled, acharei hakos Hashem es hayor, after Hashem struck the river. So on that pasuk, you can look on the Medrash Rabbah and see this idea about warnings lasting for 3 weeks and plagues lasting for a week. Ulefi zeh, according to this idea, lo haya mishpat hamitzriyim ela asara chadashim. The justice that was meted out to the Egyptians only lasted 10 months. Kaminyan eser makos, according to the number of the 10 plagues. So let's pause for a moment. This is seems to be an apparent important contradiction. We started off with a Mishnah that said that the plagues lasted 12 months. Then the Zera Shimshon brought in another statement from Chazal, from the Medrash Rabbah, that each of the 10 plagues involve 3 weeks of warning and 1 week of actual plague. Well, if there are 10 plagues and they each take up a month, that's 10 months. There's our apparent contradiction. Let's take a look at the next paragraph. Umaharsha beperek kama de Rosh Hashanah, the famous Talmudic commentator, the Maharsha, in the first chapter of Maseches Rosh Hashanah, al hahi de Rosh Hashanah batla avoda me'avoseinu b'Mitzrayim, on the statement in the Gemara over there in Maseches Rosh Hashanah that says that when Rosh Hashanah came, before the Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, right? So we left Mitzrayim in the month of Nisan. So 6 months before that, when Rosh Hashanah came, the slavery was nullified. It ceased from our forefathers in Egypt. So that's a statement that the Gemara makes over there, meaning the Jews were not forced to do slave labor all the way up until the time they left Mitzrayim. Rather, 6 months before they left approximately, they stopped being forced to do slave labor. That's a statement in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. So the Maharsha teirates, he answers our question, meaning about the apparent contradiction that the Zera Shimshon laid out in the previous paragraph. The Ikala Meimar, Maharsha says, we can say, Shehayu Yomim Mufsakim Beinehem. There were days that interrupted during the time of the Makos, Beli Maka V'Hasra Klal, without any plague and without any warning at all. So the Maharsha says that do not think that the plagues happened and the warnings all happened day after day consecutively without any breaks. No, he says there were pauses. There were yamim mufsakim, interrupting days, days in which there was no plague and no warning. So it wasn't all consecutive. Umishpat hamitzrim yud beis chodesh de ka'omar. And the statement made in the that the Zera Shimshon brought down from the Gemara about there being 12 months of the plagues and the judging of the Mitzrim and their suffering under the plagues. Hainu mitechilas makoson vehasra'oson. That is not saying that there were literally 12 months of plagues happening every day or warnings happening every day. It's saying that if you start from the very beginning of the period of the plagues and the warnings, then the entire, and you go up until the end of that, of the plagues and the warnings, which of course it ended with the Bnei Yisrael leaving Mitzrayim, that period was Yud Beis Chodesh, that period was 12 months. So that tells us we're Ad Kan Lashono until here is a quote from the Maharsha, from the commentator, the Maharsha. And so that tells us that we know Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim very quickly on the 15th of Nisan. And so if we go back 12 months from that, we'll be back in a Nisan a year before, and that is when the plagues started. And that's what we have learned. And in that sense, we've answered the apparent contradiction, because there was a 12-month period altogether when plagues and warnings were happening, but there were breaks in between. So there were time periods during the 12 months when there were no plagues and no warnings, but the period as a whole was 12 months. Next paragraph. This also leaves us with a difficulty, meaning even though we've resolved, the Maharsha has helped us resolve the original apparent contradiction, we're still left with a difficulty. By the way, the Zera Shimshon, we need to understand, he hasn't even tried to answer his original 3 questions in the first paragraph. As he often does, he's developing ideas from different sources, and he's going to ultimately take from these questions and answers and explanations, he'll take the concepts and ideas that are developed and then circle back to answer the 3 questions in the first paragraph. But right now, he's just working within his sources and to develop his ideas. But this also leaves us with a difficulty. Lama haya ha'inyan kach. Why did it have to be this way? Why did there have to be a total period of 12 months of a punishment for the Mitzrayim? Sheyiyu yomim mufsakim, which required there to be interrupting days, or days, vacation days, break days, where the Egyptians didn't get any warnings or punishments. Kedei lomar, in order to say shemishpatan hayayud beis chodesh, in order to be able to say that their judgment took up in total a period of 12 months. V'lama lo hayu hamakos bili hefsek. Why weren't the plagues given without any interruption? Asara chadashim bilvad, for only 10 months. This, of course, gets us to the core of the question, at least in terms of the sources the Zera Shimshon has been discussing after the first paragraph, right? Why is it? This is the fundamental question. Why is it that Hashem organized this whole set of experiences in Makos to cover 12 months, which included days without anything happening at all? Why didn't Hashem just do the 10 plagues, have each plague take a month, and finish the whole business in 10 months? Obviously, there must be a reason why Hashem wanted the punishment in the mishpat, the judgment of the Mitzrayim, of the Egyptians, to last for 12 months, because he chose to do that rather than have them take 10 months, which would have worked according to the formula of 1 plague for each month. That is the question. V'yesh lomar, and we can say, now, before we begin here, and the Zera Shimshon is going to really get into the crux and the core of the explanation he wants to give before he circles back to answer the questions in the first 3 paragraphs. Before we get into this, I just want to note that there are going to be ideas here which we can readily understand, and then there are going to be ideas from the Kabbalah, from Kabbalistic sources, which at least for myself, I'm not capable of understanding the way they in any kind of depth or accuracy. So when we get to those ideas, I'll do my best to mention them and translate the words in the most really basic level, but I'm not, I don't understand the terms and the Kabbalistic concepts in order to do more than that. So please be aware of that when we get there. V'yesh lomar, we can say, shebedavka hayamuchroch, sheyihya mishpatan yud bei chodesh. There is no doubt, as Zera Shimshon says, that Hashem specifically wanted the period of time in which the Egyptians, the Mitzrayim, were judged to take 12 months. Shaharei Shem HaHavaya Baruch Hu, because we have to look at the meaning of the four-lettered name of Hashem, which of course is a Yud, followed by a Hey, followed by a Vav, followed by a Hey. That's the name. Whenever it appears in the Torah, we do not pronounce it. We're forbidden from pronouncing it as it is written. And so that name, that four-letter name of Hashem, Mashma'o, its meaning is Shehu Mehaveh Kol HaHavayot, that Hashem brought into existence everything that exists. Kemo Shehu Bara Ha'olam Yesh Me'ayin, as just like Hashem created the universe from nothing, V'nosan lo havaya, and he gave to the universe existence. So the name, Zera Shimshon tells us the name Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey, that name of Hashem, in its most basic way, refers to existence. Hashem's existence and having it always existed and existing now and always existing in the future, and also bringing everything that exists into existence. That's what the four-letter name represents. Uvazeh hayaparo harasha kofer. And it was precisely this idea that Paro, the wicked individual, denied. Paro denied this idea that is absolutely fundamental in our Torah and in Judaism, that Hashem always existed and Hashem brought everything into existence. Hashem denied that. And he held the opinion, Shahakol Ba, everything came, Mehamazal, from the constellations, Mehachartumim, and from the sorcerers, V'chayotze, and from similar type sources. So Paro had no trust, had no belief in this idea of Hashem, of a God and Hashem who existed forever and brought everything to existence. That he denied, and instead he believed in his sorcerers and his astrologers and his magicians. V'rotza HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem desired sheyilke Yud Beis Chodesh, that this Paro who denied all of this fundamental truth of Hashem in the universe should be punished for 12 months. V'yisarech mishpato kol zeh hazman. And Hashem wanted that Paro's judgment and the judgment inflicted upon him and his people would last for the full 12 months. Kedei shelo yomar, in order that he shouldn't say, Im haya over alai chodesh zeh, if a specific certain month would have come during the plagues, haya hamazal shall also chodesh, the constellation of that month, matzilosi, would have saved me. So Hashem took particular care to make sure that Paro could not make this argument. Let's think about that. Let's imagine that Hashem had decided to save time and bring the 10 plagues over a period of 10 months. If that were the case, there would, of course, have been 2 months when there were no plagues. And then Paro would have had a pischon peh. He would have had the opening of the mouth, the ability to open his arrogant mouth and say, look, oh yeah, we suffered. It's true. We got hit with a lot of plagues, but the constellations that support me finally came through and were able to dominate the situation and prevent any plagues from happening during the 2 months when plagues would not have happened if they only happened during 10 months. So Hashem, in order to exclude that possibility completely, spread out the time of the 10 plagues, including the warnings and the plagues themselves, over a period of 12 months. So there was no month at all whatsoever when Paro was free from some type of plague or warning, which were spread out over the course of all 12 months of the year. So Paro never had the opportunity to make his spurious, idolatrous claim. Let's continue with the paragraph in the next page. V'lochein haya mishpato yud beis chadashim, and therefore his judgment stretched out over 12 months, keneged yud beis mazolos, corresponding to the 12 constellations. Each constellation is connected to a month, and 12 constellations connect to the 12 months, and therefore Paro's judgment was extended over 12 months. Ucheneged hashibud, and also it corresponds, the 12 months of punishment and judgment corresponds to the enslavement sheshibed yud beis shvatim, during which Paro enslaved the 12 tribes, shemishulim lechochavim umazolos, who are compared to stars and constellations. So we have Yud Beis Chodesh of punishment, 12 months of punishment, connecting to the 12 mazolos, and that left Paro no opportunity to say there's a time period, a month, when I'm not being punished, and the makos, the plagues, can't happen because of the protection from a constellation. No, all 12 constellations are covered. And also Hashem wanted the punishment to last for 12 months because Paro enslaved the 12 shvatim, the 12 tribes. Ucheneged yud beis givule alachson. This is the beginning of a Kabbalistic concept. And the 12 months of punishment also corresponds to the 12 borders of a cube. Shehitziv HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'vriyas ha'olam, which Hashem established when he created the world, meaning he established the properties of a cube that has 12 edges. Shenivra bishmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the universe was of course created with the name of Hashem. Vehem yud beis tserufe havaya Baruch Hu. And these 12 edges represent the 12 combinations that can be made of the 4-letter name of Hashem. Meaning, if we take our Shem Havaya, which means the name of existence, which, as we've said, is the Yud, the name of the Yud, and the Hey, and the Vav and the Hey, those 4 letters can be put in different orders. They can be changed around. The letters can be moved around. And you end up with 12 possible permutations, 12 combinations of the name. Shebechol chodesh v'chodesh, and every month, Sholei Tseruf Echad Me Hashem, one name of Hashem, one 4-letter name of Hashem, using the 4 letters in a specific order. Sholeit is dominant. Umazal Echad Me Yud Beis Mazalos, and also one constellation of the 12 constellations is dominant during that month. Vehem Mechuvanim LeYud Beis Shvatim, and these things correspond to the 12 tribes, Yud Beis Gevulim, and to the 12 cubes, Kabbalistic cubes of, and the 12 Kabbalistic borders or edges of the cube. Lochach Loka, and therefore Paro was struck, V'haya Mishpato, and it was his judgment, Bechol Serufe Osios of Shel Hashem, was his judgment to be struck with all of the combinations of the 4-letter name of Hashem. So let's pause here for a moment. The point before this paragraph that the Zera Shimshon had developed was that clearly Hashem wanted Paro's judgment and the plagues to last for 12 months rather than the 10 months that they could have occurred in. Why did he want them to last for the 12 months? So the Zera Shimshon started by presenting the idea that Hashem wanted to make it impossible for Paro to have any period of time when he could claim that a certain constellation was protecting him, and therefore the makos had to be spread out to cover 12 months, and that would cover all of the 12 constellations. Paro, in fact, could never point to a specific constellation and say, look, Nothing's happening to me during the entire period of this constellation being in the sky and being dominant. Nothing's happening to me. That did not occur because something was always happening, whether it was a warning for an upcoming plague or whether or not it was a plague itself. So that's how the Zera Shimshon started. And then the Zera Shimshon continued to develop the significance and the symbolism of the 12 months corresponding, I should say, to the 12 mazalos and the 12 shvatim and the 12 Kabbalistic edges of the cube, which corresponds to the 12 permutations of the four-letter name of Hashem. And then the Zera Shimshon just told us now at the end of this paragraph, and that also was a very specific goal of Hashem, to make sure that each one of the names that the four-letter name of Hashem can be put in would be dominant during one of the months when Paro would be punished, in order to make it clear that each one of the names of Hashem corresponded to a time period when Paro and his people were suffering from the plagues. Next paragraph. V'chein nireh, and so it appears, Shehakadosh Baruch Hu Rama Zeh LeMoshe Batchil. Zera Shimshon says, it appears that Hashem hinted to this whole idea that he just developed to Moshe Batchila in the very beginning of the plague. Shenemar, as it states in the Torah, back in Shmos Perek Dalet, V'diber hu lecha, and he, meaning a reference to Aharon, he will speak for you, v'diber hu lecha, el ha'am, to the people, v'hayahu yihyeh lecha lefeh, and he will be for you for a mouth. So way back in the beginning, when when Hashem informed Moshe of his mission to go and rescue Bnei Yisrael from Mitzrayim and take them out of servitude, way back then at the very beginning of the mission, Moshe, of course, very famously said that he was not the right person for the job, and he couldn't talk correctly or clearly, and he demonstrated his anivus, his humility, to an incredibly high degree. And Hashem said, I'm going to send Aaron with you. I understand what you're saying, and I'll send Aaron to be your spokesperson. So the Zera Shimshon says, if we take that pasuk in which Hashem communicates that Aaron will be for a spokesperson for Moshe, and we analyze it carefully, we'll see this idea of the letters of Hashem's four of the letters of Hashem's four-letter name right there. Sheroshe Tevos Havaya Mehupeches. We see here that four of the letters of the name of Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey are right in that pasuk. However, they're not in the order that we see them in the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. They're in a different order. So let's actually take a look at that right now. If you go back up one line in the text, the Diber hu lecha El, right after the El. Ha'am, the first letter is a Hey. V'haya, the second letter is a Vav. The first letter of that word ha'am is a Hey. Then the first letter of the v'haya is a Vav. Hu, and the first letter of the word hu is a Hey. Yihyeh, and the first letter of that word, which is the fourth word in the sequence, is a Yud. Lecha lefeh will be for you a spokesperson. All the way back then, Hashem was hinting to Moshe that his four-letter name was going to be operating in this mission, but the letters were out of order. Lirmos, to hint shebishem zeh, to hint to Moshe that it was with this name, rotze lasos din lefaro, that Hashem wanted to bring punishment on Paro. Meaning, and here we must pause to explain, this means that Hashem's four-letter name, when it is put in the familiar order, a Yud, a Hey, a Vav, and a Hey, that represents Hashem's midas harachamim, Hashem's quality of mercy and compassion. And therefore, Hashem did not put the letters, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, in that correct order representing the midas harachamim. Hashem moved them around and put them in a different order to hint to Moshe, my four-letter name, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, is going to be used to bring punishment to Paro, but not in its normal order, which demonstrates Rachamim, but rather in an order which is the opposite of Rachamim. It's punishment. It's mishpat. Lochach. I'm sorry. Lasos din lefaro, to bring a judgment to Pharaoh. V'chein nami b'makas ha'arbe. So too, similarly, we see something in the plague of locusts. Omru lo avodov, the servants of Paro. Paro's servants said to him, and now comes a quote from the pasuk: Ad mosai yihiyeh ze lonu lemokesh. Until when will this one be for us as an obstacle? Paro's servant said to him, we've got to stop this. Moshe and Aaron and the Jewish people, were getting destroyed because of them. The punishments, the plagues that are coming on us are destroying our land and our people. How much longer can we go on? Now let's look right at that pasuk and be on the lookout for the letters that are in Hashem's four-letter name. Ad Mosai, you see the last letter of the word Mosai is a Yud. Yihiyeh, the last letter is a Hey. Zeh, the last letter is a Hey. Lonu, the last letter is a Vav. Then the last word in the pasuk, Lemokesh. So in the words Masai, Yihiyeh, Zeh, Lonu, we see again the four letters of Hashem's four-letter name, but not in the conventional order. Rather, we see at the Sofei Tevos, at the ends of the words, the Yud, then we see the Hey, then we see the Hey, then we see the Vav. Sofei Tevos Havayo B'Tzeruf. The last letters in those four words come from the four-letter name of Hashem, B'Tzeruf, when they're combined. Vehem Adarabba Hayurotim Havayo B'Yosher. And the servants of Paro wanted the exact opposite to happen. They wanted the name of Hashem, of the Yud, followed by the Hey, followed by the Vav, followed by the Yud. They wanted that name to be the name that was used correctly, and in that order, Shehu Rachamim, which represents mercy. But that is not what they got. They wanted to get mercy from Hashem, but instead they got punishment and judgment stretched out over 12 months. Next paragraph. Sorry, I realize I said the letters incorrectly. Right at the end of this paragraph we just ended, they wanted to have the letters come in the order of the one we're familiar with, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, but that didn't happen. They got those four letters, but in a different order. Uvazeh yuvan hatam. And with this, it can be understood the reason, Lama kisha amar Paro. Why is it that when Paro said, Hashem hatzadik ve'ani ve'ami harishaim, Paro said something that seemed to be very pious and seemed to show a broken spirit in front of Hashem. He said, God is the righteous one, and I and my people are the wicked ones. Lo kibel HaKadosh Baruch Hu tfilaso, but Hashem did not accept his prayer or his teshuvah. Ella, but lefi shelo hayisa tshuvaso shlema. It's because his own words showed that he was not doing real tshuva and complete tshuva. He was not truly accepting Hashem as the creator of the universe, Shahare, and the controller of the universe. Shahare hifrid bein osios Hashem, because he put in an interrupting letter. He put in a dividing letter within the four names of Hashem. Shekof al os havav, because he doubled up on the letter Vav. Of course, the letter Vav only appears once in the four-lettered name of Hashem, but Paro said it twice. Hashem hatzadik, Hashem is the righteous one. There we see the Hey from Hashem's name. Hatzadik, we see the Hey from the word tzadik. Vav from the word va'ani. I'm sorry. The starting off with Hashem is not counted. We see Hashem's name, Hashem. Now, Hatzadik, there's the first letter, and that word is a Hey. The first letter and the next letter is a Vav. And then the last letter is the Hey of Rishaim. So we have Hey, Vav, Vav, Hey. And so we don't have the four-letter name of Hashem. We have an extra vav that doesn't belong there. The next paragraph. And yes, now we see the truth in the words of the Maharsha. Shehamishpat shel Yud Beis Chodesh. I'm sorry, I made a mistake and I need to go back. At the end of the previous paragraph, we do count the name of Hashem in the pasuk. I said we did not, but let's go back to look at that line and we'll see that exactly what the Zera Shimshon is saying. Hashem, which is the four-letter name of Hashem, as it's written in the Torah, which begins with the letter Yud. So you have the letter Yud. Then in the next word, Hatzadik, you have the letter Hey. Then in the next word, you have the letter Vav from Va'ani. Then in the next word, you have Va'ami, another Vav. And then the final word is a Hey. So the Zera Shimshon is saying the Paro came close to doing a full tshuva, and he came close to getting mercy from Hashem. However, he put in one extra word, which brought in an extra letter Vav, and so he himself blocked off Hashem's mercy because he didn't fully and truly accept Hashem as the creator of the universe and as the only being that has existed forever and the only being that controls everything that happens in the universe. Next paragraph. And the truth of the Maharsha's words, and this Maharsha was mentioned previously, Shahamishpat shel Yud Beis Chodesh maschil mitechilas hahasra harishona. The Maharsha is the one who said that the entire period of time of warnings and plagues and breaks without warnings or plagues took 12 months. And the Maharsha also said that the whole 12-month period started from the very beginning when the first warning took place. Uvachodesh harishon hayisa hahasra v'haot shel mateh. In the first month, meaning in Nisan, occurred the first warning, which was in the form of a sign of the stick, hanev pach lenochash, which turned into a snake. This was a sign that Hashem had given Moshe to do in front of Paro and throw down the staff and have it turn into a nachash, into a serpent. Vayivla mate Aharon es, and Aaron's staff swallowed up, top of the next column, es matosam, their staffs. Ve'achar koch is chilu amakos b'chodesh hasheni. And afterwards, the plagues actually started happening in the next month. So in the first month of the year of the Yud Beis Chodesh, when things went south, when things went sour for Paro and his people, and the plagues and the warnings took place spread out over 12 months. The first month was the month of Nisan. As we said, everything started 12 months before Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim. And so everything started then. How did the party get started, so to speak? It started with Moshe and Aaron coming, appearing before Paro, Aaron throwing down his staff. It turns into a serpent, and it eats up the staffs of Paro's magicians. And that was a sign that the plagues that were coming were going to consume Mitzrayim and the Mitzrayim. And therefore, that was a very stark warning. Of course, Paro didn't take it too seriously, but it was intended as a stark warning that would start off the period of the Yud Beis Chodesh of the 12 months of judgment and punishment and warnings and plagues. And during the 12 months, there was 1 month where there was no plague at all. A plague didn't occur during that month. This represented the tribe of Levi, who were not who were not enslaved and forced to do slave labor. We know from various places, Chazal teaches us that the Egyptians did not enslave the tribe of Levi. They viewed the tribe of Levi as the clergy members of Bnei Yisrael, the teachers of Bnei Yisrael, and the spiritual leaders of Bnei Yisrael, and therefore they did not enslave them. And that is represented by the fact that during the entire 12 months, you could put together a time period of 4 months. Of 4 weeks. You could put it together when there was no plague occurring. There were warnings of plagues because every month had warnings or plagues or both. But during this month, there was no actual plague to represent the fact that the Mitzrayim did not enslave Shevet Levi. Uchadei shelo yimtza, next paragraph, and in order, shelo yimtza makom paro lomar, that Paro could not find a way to say, shemazal oso chodesh etzilo, that the mazel of this month saved him, mishum hachi lo hischilu hamakos mitchilas hachodesh. Because of this, the plagues did not begin at the start of a month. Ela be'emtza chodesh, they started in the middle of a month. Kemoshe matzinu, as we find, shesimu b'tesvav b'nisan. The entire period of the 12 months of punishment ended on the 15th of Nisan, when, of course, Bnei Yisrael experienced Yitzias Mitzrayim. They left Mitzrayim. And therefore we can see from the fact that things ended in the middle of a month, they must have began in the middle of a month, going back to the previous Nisan 12 months before. In the middle of that month, things started. The month of time in which there was no plague occurring was actually half of one month and half of another month. And therefore we can say, or we can reassert, that during every month of the 12 months, there was either a plague, or there was a warning, or in some cases a plague and a warning could have taken place during an individual month. And again, this demonstrated clearly there was no conceivable way that any constellation or any other force that Paro thought was acting in his benefit could protect them from either a makkah or a warning, or, as we said, sometimes both. V'nicha shapir, next paragraph, and it makes a lot of sense. It fits nicely. Shebozeh mora al yichud Hashem hakadosh. This demonstrates the unity of Hashem's name. Shaharei hatzeirufim hayukshurim zeh bozeh. The combinations of Hashem's names spread out, each one corresponded to a particular month of the 12 months of Makos hitting Paro and the Mitzrayim. And because they were unified in the sense that Makos could take place during half of 1 month, for a specific Makkah and its warnings, its week of Makkah and 3 weeks of warnings could be split up between 2 months. It showed how the months were interconnected. And each month represented a certain name of the 4-letter word of Hashem, was dominant during each month. And it shows how those things work together, how those things interconnected. V'chein kosav habachaya, and so Rabbeinu Bachaya wrote, Shemare hasneh, the appearance of the burning bush, that when Moshe first received his mission from Hashem, Hoyu biyom tesvav b'Nisan, Rabbeinu Bachaya says that event occurred on the 15th of Nisan, exactly 1 year before the Jews left Mitzrayim on the 15th of Nisan. Ve'achar Pesach, and after what would become the holiday of Pesach. Of course, at that moment when Moshe was at the Sneh, there was no holiday of Pesach yet, nothing to celebrate in terms of Yetzias Mitzrayim yet. That would happen a year later. But after that period, which would become the first day of Pesach, Holach Moshe leMitzrayim, Moshe went down to Mitzrayim to begin his mission of bringing out Bnei Yisrael. So therefore, we see that Moshe and Aaron appeared in front of Paro in Mitzrayim to begin the process of the redemption, and Aaron threw down his staff, beginning the period of warnings and plagues in the month of Nisan, because Moshe was at the Sneh on the 15th of Nisan and left to go to Mitzrayim soon after and begin his mission. Next paragraph. V'hinei Yud Beis Havayos Olim Bigematria Chodesh. Now the Zera Shimshon is going back to deal with the questions he asked in the first paragraph. And he is saying, the 12 months, the 12 names of Hashem add up into Gematria a number which is equal to Chodesh. Let's get the Gematria of Chodesh. The Shin is 400, the Chet is 8, and the Dalet is 4. That gives us 412. And believe it or not, if you take the 4-letter name of Hashem, the Yud, and the Hey, and the Vav and the Hey, you get 26. If you multiply that by 12, because you're trying to get the total of all of the permutations of Hashem's name across the 12 months, you get the same number of 412, and it equals Chodesh. Velochein, and therefore, Besof HaMishpat, at the end of the 12 months of period of justice inflicted upon Paro, Sha'asu Elu, Hayud Beis Tzeirufim ala Mitzrim, that were brought upon the Egyptians by the 12 combinations of Hashem's four-letter name, once that period ended, Lefi Shaharishayim Mehapchem Midas Arachamim Lemidas Hadin, and it happened to them because these wicked Egyptians turned the merciful name of Hashem into a name that represents and brought punishment. Nasan lahem mitzvahs kiddush hachodesh. Only after that period, right before the Jews left Mitzrayim, could Hashem give them the mitzvah of kiddush hachodesh. V'omar lahem, and he said to them, hachodesh, the word that's 412 in gematria, representing all of the 12 months of punishment. Hazel, this one, lachem, is to you. Dehainu, what does that mean? Elu hayud beis tzeirufim, these 12 permutations of Hashem's four-letter name, shehem begematria zeh, that in any specific month equal 27, ubegematria, equal Zion and 5 equal 12. There are 12 months, so each month is a 12th. It equals it equals 1 month is 12, a 12th of the 12 months. Ubegematria chodesh, and in gematria the number of the gematria of chodesh, as we said, was 412, representing all of the names of Hashem, she'asu din leMitzrayim, that brought justice and punishment on the Egyptians. Yiyu lahashbia lachem chesed v'rachamim, for you it's going to bring mercy and compassion. So let's think again of the three words, hachodesh hazeh lachem. This month, representing the 12 permutations of Hashem's name, because it's the same gematria, hachodesh hazeh, this one, these same 12 permutations that brought punishment for each of the months to the Egyptians, lachem, will be for you as a benefit, will be for you for a bracha. Hashem is promising Bnei Yisrael that his name, four-letter name of Hashem, will always bring chesed and rachamim from Hashem, and not punishment as it did on the Mitzrayim. Ulefi she'ikar hayud beis tzeirufim heim lefi chodshei halavana, because the 12 permutations of Hashem's name correspond to the 12 lunar months, v'lo lefi chodshei hachama, and they do not correspond to a solar calendar, to a purely solar calendar. Mishum hachi amar lahem liYisrael, because of that, Hashem said to the Jewish people, yaschelu lios monim lalavana. God said to the Jewish people, we're going to use the moon. You're going to use the moon to count the beginning of each month. Ve'omar hachodesh hazeh lachem. This month will be for you, lachem davka. It's only going to be for you, the Jewish people, to set up a lunar calendar that represents the chesed and kindness to you, v'lo le'umos, and not to the other nations of the world. Uchadivrei Razal, as Chazal stated. Top of the next page. In addition, when a person sees the new moon and he makes a bracha, he is demonstrating that he believes in the creation of the world, shehu ikar hayamuna, which is a fundamental principle of faith. Umode al elokuso shel yotzer bereshis, and he's also admitting and proclaiming the divinity of the one who created the world with the Maaseh Bereshis, Shechidish Olam, when he created the universe. Keshem sheham mechadesh halavona b'chol chodesh v'chodesh, because we say in Kiddush HaChodesh, just like Hashem brings the new moon each month, this represents how Hashem created the entire universe, was mechadesh Maaseh Bereshis. He brought the entire universe into existence. Uchemoshe Kosav HaBachaya, and Rabbeinu Bachai wrote, V'zehu hefech ma shehaya kofer paro harasha, and all of this, everything that the Zera Shimshon has developed, is exactly the opposite of Paro's kvira, of Paro's heretical assertions that God, chas v'shalom, that God did not create the world, that God didn't exist forever, that God is not omnipotent, and all of these things that we do, and that Hashem said in the words Hashem used in the Torah throughout the Makos, before the Makos began, and during the Makos, and after the Makos with Kiddush HaChodesh. All of these things show us the complete emptiness and futility of Paro's beliefs and his ideas versus the pure, complete truth of Hashem's Torah. Yasher Koach to joining together and learning the Zera Shimshon this week, and we look forward, God willing, to learning together again the Zera Shimshon next week.